Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into the first ever countdown to kickoff. Not only Monday Night Football version, but the first ever countdown to kickoff at all for Buffalo Rumblings. It's so good to have all of you guys with us, and those of you that will be joining us as well in a couple of minutes. But my name is Joe Miller. I'm one of the panel members. Sitting to, I guess, would be, what is this? Is this my left? Your right? I don't even know. It's this is weird. This right left stuff is none other than the Bruce exclusive. Below me is Nate from Circle of the Wagons, and then Big Newt, of course, diagonal directionally down below me. How you guys all doing tonight? Somebody jump in. Bruce, how you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling good. You know, I feel like today was busy enough that I didn't really have the opportunity to think about the fact that there's a game, which means I'm feeling basically no nerves, right? Which is always a good thing. I almost kind of forgot there was a game tonight until I had to come. I was like, I think I got to talk about something tonight. I feel like I signed up for something. I don't remember what it was, but I signed up for some obligation that I probably shouldn't have said yes to. And then lo and behold, it's this.
So what's cool about that is I'm the guy that said, right, that football on Sunday for me is like rolling the fat guy up to the buffet table, and then the Bills game in primetime is dessert. So you literally had the waiter show up with the dessert, unexpected and free. Like, here's the dessert, sir.
Yeah, I'll take it. I don't know if you're much of a dessert guy when you go to dinner. I have a tendency to kind of never really be able to find something that I really want to eat, but I do like creme brulee. Oh. So if there's creme brulee on the menu for dessert, I will take a special exception for some creme brulee.
That's funny. My wife makes it at home, and I always use the French version, vernacular of creme brulee. She gets mad at me every time I do it. Big Newt, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm very good, man. Just thinking about the game tonight, I feel like I would be worried if we would have lost last week. But
yeah.
See, this has been a hug fest. Buffalo Bills on the top of all the power rankings. Everybody calling you from college. Hey, you know, they like, hey, your team's doing good. Y'all the real deal. Everybody gushing over us. If we would have lost last week on national TV, it would have been like, okay, I would have been worried. Like, we got to get back on a winning stride. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
This has been a wonderful week, man. And like you said, man, this weekend was great. You can just kick back, watch games on Sunday, not have to worry about anything. And I think we're going to go out and get a win tonight.
Awesome. And Nate from Circle of the Wagons, how are you tonight, sir?
I am doing well, Joe, Bruce, Big Newt. This is so cool that we're doing this all together. Echoing the Big Newt sentiments about getting super jacked up for this game. Bruce, with all this creme brulee talk, it's almost like you should do a podcast that incorporates some food in some way, shape, or form.
It's weird. I don't know what I would call it. What do you think, Nate?
I don't know, but I'm not sure, but I feel like you should have some thoughts after the food discussion and go from there.
There's something there. Thought, food, thought, food, thought, food ball. Food ball.
I got a food thinker.
Quite the nugget that you just kind of like delivered to him right there. So
morsel,
just a morsel of a taste of an idea.
It's like we should be spitballing this into something bigger. I don't know. You know, maybe we can get some guys from WGR on there. We'll see. No.
And then every beat reporter in Buffalo.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Awesome.
No. This is cool, Joe. Thanks for setting this up, because it's like we got like all these different podcasts within the Buffalo Rumblings podcast network. It's almost like one of those crossovers from back in the day, like the Jetsons and the Flintstones, or like Family Guy and Simpsons. No, this is cool. I'm excited to talk some Bills Titans with you guys.
Awesome.
Joe is Chicago PD. Newt is Chicago Med. Nate is Chicago, and I'm the river after it turns green for St. Patrick's Day. That's what I am.
Like when you all bring it all together, it's like the Avengers, man. They got all these separate movies, and then they come in for a big galactic one, man. That's great.
Hopefully, this is an end game. Well, we're going to start green, and that's with a super chat. And that super chat literally just from Diplex Sleet says, hey. That was my drunken version, even though I'm not drunk.
Hey.
So yeah, let's go Buffalo. So let's talk Bills. We're going to start actually not where I said we were going to start as we jump into this thing. We're actually going to start Daniel Gower through the Bills inactives up there for us. They are, or I should, the inactives for the game, at least from the Bills. AJ Epinesa, that is a surprise. Matt Breida, Boogie Basham, maybe a surprise. Tommy Doyle, Vernon Butler. Why don't we just start right there and somebody jump in and give me thoughts on AJ Epinesa, fastest get off in the league, right? Came on strong early. You're talking about a kid that has impressed, in my opinion, the first couple games of the season. Somebody jump in here and tell me your thoughts, immediate thoughts, seeing AJ Epinesa on the inactives list.
I think having somebody who you trust to have the experience to be able to set the edge against multiple different types of runs, I think is valuable in this game. It's pretty clear based on the inactives, you want to keep an extra linebacker, which they want to do given Matt Milano's situation. So you want to hedge against the propensity for a flare up from Matt Milano. And you also want to make sure that you go heavier on the base front. So do you trust AJ Epinesa or Mario Addison? I do think AJ Epinesa has been better than Mario Addison, but Mario Addison's infinitely more experienced and has historically set the edge very well against the run game. I think this is simply a matchup thing. I do think that as the year goes along, you'll probably start to see Epinesa get more and more, and Addison and Hughes probably get less and less. But for right now, this is a very game-specific inactive list, and I wouldn't anticipate that it's indicative of anything more than that.
Nate, surprised by that? AJ Epinesa maybe over Rousseau, who's a rookie, or somebody else?
Definitely not more. Definitely not more than Rousseau. I'd be very surprised now at this point if they don't, if they make Greg Rousseau inactive at any point this season. He seems to be one of their top two defensive ends. Boogie Basham, it's funny. I could see them making Boogie Basham inactive and then making AJ Epinesa active. But like Bruce said, I think it's all game dependent, which is kind of a cool little twist that the Bills have this year. They probably won't have that next year with Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes on expiring contracts. But nothing too crazy. Obviously, Matt Breida again inactive, and third string tight end or whatever you want to call Tommy Doyle at this point. No, nothing really seems to jump off to me.
What's surprising, and Big Newt, I'm going to give you the first shot at the next question. What's surprising to me here is we're seeing Vernon Butler inactive and Harrison Phillips active. Which Harrison Phillips, what was the last time he was active? Was it the Washington game, or was it before that? Anybody remember? Nobody.
I do not.
I do not either. I know it was a couple games ago. Another super chat from Mario Dominguez. Go Bills from El Paso, Texas. Brother, go Bills. Enjoy this football game tonight. Super excited and glad that you were joining us. So let's do this. Let's start here. And Big Newt, I'm going to start with you. Coming off of what we watched last year, what do you remember? Do you have emotions, feelings from that game last year? And what was it? How did that game leave you feeling? And what is that kind of emotion that you're carrying with you into this game? What do you remember? What's your recollection?
I remember it quite vividly, man. And for all of you all watching, you listen to our podcast, the Jamie D and Big Newt show. I thought it was a slam dunk going into the game. I remember it like it was yesterday with the whole COVID thing. We didn't know if we were going to get to play. They had COVID, and David's wife was like, I don't know if I want to go. And I was just like, they had guys out for a while, and I just knew we were going to go down there and whoop them that game, and they wound us taking us behind the woodshed. And if you look at it, out of all the games last year, that was really our only stinker. All right. We lost that game, 42-16, I think. That was really our only stinker. We only lost 3 times last year, of course. And the Kansas City game, I mean, we didn't lose by that much. And then obviously the Hail Mary against Arizona. So out of 16 games, that's your only stinker. That's the one we point to. So I think it just goes back to us having, once again, the revenge tour everybody's been talking about this week. We want the get-backs against the Ravens. We want the get-backs against the Chiefs. And now we got a chance to get some get-back against Tennessee Titans, even though we won 2 of the last 3, I believe. So we just want to make sure it gets some get-back. And on top of that, this is the revenge game for my man Josh Norman, okay? Because that stiff arm that Derrick Henry gave him, okay, that's just like somebody beat up on your friend at the bar. You're like, hey, we got to get that guy back. And I think that's what this is. This is the get-back game. And because we're going to see that stiff arm throughout history now, because it's one of the best plays when it comes to physicality from a running back. I want to be able to put him in the dirt and get some get-back because of that.
Love it. Nate, what's your recollection from last year from that football game?
I think Big Newt summed it up well with that stiff arm to Josh Norman. I mean, that kind of summed it up the entire game. I went back and I re-listened to our recap from it in 2020 because I remembered it vaguely, and then now I remember it all too well. And it was one of those games. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Steelers game in week 1, where everything had to go wrong for the Bills, for the Titans to win. And I know they won 42-16, but I mean, the Bills they didn't have Tre'Davious White last year.
Yep.
They didn't have Levi Wallace last year. They didn't have Matt Milano in the game last year. Those are 3 huge key contributors. So then, you also had the issues with COVID, and you're talking about, the schedule being changed several times going into it, traveling there. It was just, everything was up in the air going into this game. And then obviously it threw off the week after. I thought at the time that the Bills were the better team. I still think they're the better team. I still think they were the better team looking back at it. I mean, remember the Andre Roberts not only tipped a pass up for the interception last season, but he also fumbled a kickoff return in the fourth quarter. I mean, Corey Bojorquez had the laces in on field goal attempts. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong. And Ryan Tannehill was 21 for 28, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns. Didn't do anything spectacular, but he didn't have to.
That's right.
And I mean, they had no pass rush whatsoever. That was one of the underlying themes of that game. And this, I mean, we'll go into it, I'm sure. But that, I remember Tannehill having all the time in the world. And I remember thinking, like, the Bills have Tannehill's number. They always did in Miami, but not when he has time to throw, and that was one of the determining factors. And I think we always think about the Chiefs games being one of the reasons why the Bills upgrade in the offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if you looked at the Titans game and look like you can't have a quarterback just sit back there for 7-8 seconds, and they're going to find AJ Brown open. They're going to find Jonnu Smith for 2 touchdowns. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, when Big Mario isn't coming off the edge, Tannehill seems to have a little more time, right? So, Bruce, what are your memories from that game last year?
I think it was just kind of a weird game to begin with. It was an odd game, happened at an odd time, odd circumstances, missing players. But I think that game doesn't get enough publicity for being the second of the games that the Bills defense really struggled with contain in their pass rush. People talk about Ryan Tannehill had a good game, but he also had 42 yards rushing and a touchdown. This is a time where we have a tendency to kind of talk about contain when it comes to players like Patrick Mahomes. Oh, we lost contain. Oh, we lost contain. We don't talk about it with Ryan Tannehill, and we probably should. One of the things that I think is important going into this game is understanding that Ryan Tannehill's been sacked 20 times so far this year. That's a lot. However, that doesn't mean you can get super greedy and screw up your contain. You can't mess up with your rush lanes. You can't be constantly dipping inside. Ryan Tannehill is a good athlete at the position. I mean, he's not Josh Allen at the position, but he's a very good athlete at the position. And this is a guy who very famously was a converted wide receiver in college. He can play. And he can run. And if you are clamping down on the receivers because maybe they're not fully healthy, then you're going to get that. You're going to get him on the edge and he's going to run. And so I don't think we talk about it enough when it comes to the Titans game last year, but we talk about it a lot when it comes to the Chiefs game last year. And I don't feel like those narratives line up with reality the way they should, because it was just as much of an issue in Tennessee as it was with Kansas City. So that was my big recollection from that game, was just you didn't get the job done in areas that didn't get the publicity that they should have.
Yeah, we got a couple super chats to get to. I'm going to get to them. Before I do, I'll give you my recollection. My recollection from that game is Ryan Tannehill has one of the most punchable faces I've seen inside of a football helmet ever. Like the smirk and that smirky grin he had on his face that whole game, because he just knew he could do whatever he wanted to do. The Bills couldn't stop him. It was almost like they had already run for the bus. And I just remember sitting on my couch wanting to punch that guy in the face. So that's kind of, not that I would, because he's a lot bigger than me. But this is my girl Tia Estelle, NYAP in the 716. I think Harrison Phillips is active because of the run game. Big Newt, what you think? Good reason?
I think that's a good reason. And going back to that previous question we were talking about earlier, I think that's a testament to Brandon Beane, man. When you can sit people, excuse me, when you can sit people like Epinesa and Boogie Basham as well as they're playing, and those guys aren't active, that's talking and lending to the depth of our team. And I think that's a beautiful thing going forward. So, I mean, I know Mario Allison probably won't be on the roster next year, but I mean, the fact that we could game plan like that, and put those people in those situations, man, I think that's just a tribute to our makeup of our roster.
Yeah, when you're playing matchup games versus other teams, it's at the point where you're playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers, right? We're going to bring up the guys we want, and we're going to sit the guys we want based on who you're going to play. The Pullout King, thanks for being a part of the show, brother. He says, at Joe, I'll be at the Tampa game. We'll be looking forward to have a drink with you. Dude, bring it on. So, yeah, I'm going, for those of you that don't know what he's talking about, I'll be at the Tampa Bay game. Excited about that. I'm very salty and have FOMO big time for missing this game in Tennessee, as a lot of you, if you're on Twitter, already know. But would love to see you down there. Hopefully we can connect. That would be fantastic. Justin Watkins comes in with a super chat. Do you think Beasley has another sub 40% snap count, or he actually plays a factor when we run some more 4-wide sets? Nate, you had an interesting question that kind of went right along with that before we jumped in live. What are your thoughts?
So tonight I can start either AJ Brown or Cole Beasley in my fantasy league. Luckily, I have Cole Beasley as a backup because AJ Brown is my, number one wide receiver there. And I was thinking, though, if AJ Brown wasn't going to be active, then I wasn't going to worry about having Cole Beasley in, because I know he's had a few weeks where, the snap counts have been down. His stats have not been there whatsoever. But, what was it, just week 2 against the Texans, where he had almost 100 yards and like 8 receptions and stuff like that.
11 receptions.
11 receptions. Thank you. So I think this is absolutely a get-right game for Cole Beasley, where I don't have necessarily a feeling that it's absolutely going to happen, but it just feels like, okay, he's had 2 games off. They're going to bring him on. The Bills coaching staff has done a great job of sprinkling things in and then taking them out when they needed to. So there were some things that we saw last week. I can't remember, because you guys all mentioned it on your shows. Something. Oh, it was Reggie Gilliam last week. Reggie Gilliam was active for a lot of last week and played a lot of snaps. I don't think they do that this week necessarily, but then maybe they sprinkle in some Cole Beasley, and maybe I still think Stephon Diggs is going to get his, but maybe Emmanuel Sanders has a little bit less, or maybe as was mentioned in Food for Thought, maybe Dawson Knox takes a back seat for 1 week compared to Cole Beasley. I think he does get more the Titans have the worst pass off your defense when it comes to wide receivers. They give up the most passing yards in the NFL to wide receivers. So I think Cole Beasley, this is a good game for him.
Yeah, I was actually Justin Watkins, thank you so much for the super chat. I was actually going to roll that over to Bruce, just as far as when you look at their defensive backfield and what we're going to be facing in this football game. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's, 1 deep is one thing, 2 deep is another thing. The Bills are 3, 4, 5 deep. I mean, we still have yet to see the birth of, Kumaro in this offense this season. So what's your take, just at glance, their defensive backfield, because it kind of rolls into what we're going to talk about, matchups, their defensive backfields versus our wide receiver sets?
I don't see a path to consistent positive play for the Tennessee secondary against the Bills wide receivers. You had a good player there in Christian Fulton, and he's not playing tonight. You guys know I was a big Christian Fulton fan coming out of LSU. He's the guy I wanted to pick at 54 instead of AJ Epinesa. That's been well documented. So for me, if you are a defense who has put a lot of resources into trying to get better, because their defense was really bad last year, and they put a lot of resources. They got Bud Dupree. They went out and they signed the corner from the Giants, whose name always continues to escape me. And they said, okay, we need to get better. We absolutely need to get better against the pass. And they just didn't. They just haven't so far this year. Now, they've had some injuries. We all know this, right? Injuries have been a big part of that. And for the Titans, it's a matter of finding matchups that work. And there just aren't any across the board. When you look at them, you say, okay, where do I feel good here? Do I feel good about my slot corner against Cole Beasley? Not really. Do I feel good about my safeties being able to hold up and deep? Not really. I mean, where do I feel good here? I think the answer for the Titans is, can you get pressure on Josh Allen and make it so that the secondary isn't as significant of a glaring flaw? Can you get Harold Landry to play the game of his life against Darrell Williams, right? Because Harold Landry is a good player,
right?
Can you get your first round defensive tackle, Jeffrey Simmons, to play a heck of a game? if they're going to win in pass defense, it's not going to be in the secondary. If they're going to win in pass defense, it's going to be up front because the secondary is not a good matchup. You've got to have a Steelers level front dominance against the Buffalo Bills offensive line so you can pull it off.
Yeah, that's very good. Nate, is there a matchup in this football game you're looking forward to, or that your eyes are maybe going to be on?
So I don't think we've even talked about the obvious matchup of Derrick Henry, right?
Not yet.
That's first and foremost, and I'm sure each of you guys was going to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Derrick Henry just he's like Brandon Jacobs on steroids. I mean, the guy's just he's unbelievable. If I were the Tennessee Titans, you have to get him started. You have to keep Josh Allen off the field because you need to keep your defense off the field because they've been so poor this season. If they can't, if the Titans can't get that going, the matchups I'm looking forward to would be AJ Brown and Julio Jones against the Bills starting corners, and I think that's a matchup that the Bills can still win, obviously. But I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now Julio Jones banged up, AJ Brown banged up. Both guys have been in or off and on the injury report for several weeks now. So and Julio Jones was. I don't know if he's still quite the player that he was, when he was in Atlanta.
Right.
I shouldn't even say Atlanta, like 3 years ago in Atlanta, really at this point. So that's definitely what I'll be watching because I think once the Bills get up and if they can take advantage of it and Henry doesn't get going to start off, then it's going to be catch up. And I don't think he might not even be a factor after the first half.
I like Brandon Jacobs on steroids. I think I would probably is a better comp. Antoine Smith that doesn't fall over at first contact might be a better comp for me because of his size, his speed. He's top heavy. But if you guys remember, Antoine Smith, every time he would go through the hole, other than that one Raider game where he trucked that Raider defensive back, every time he would get barely touched on the shoulder pad, whatever, the dude would get tied up and fall over. Sorry, that's levity for the show. Big Newt, matchups you're looking forward to in this game.
I mean, the same thing I wrote down in my notes is Derrick. In my mind, it's going to be Derrick Henry versus Josh Allen. And you go back to the game last year, you look at the situation that's giving up 40 some odd points is because they play on short fields most of the time.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think it's because of a large Bill contingent that's down in Nashville. It's going to be like a home game. I think it's going to be okay from that standpoint. We got to give them long fields to drive. And then once that happens, like they just said, to piggyback off his sentiment, then it's going to be pretty much render him helpless and ineffective. So if he rushes for 100 yards, so be it. As long as we're airing the ball out, which I think we can do against their secondary, like Bruce so eloquently said, I think there won't be a problem. But when you look at the matchup, I just said two offensive players. I'm really looking for Josh Allen. I know we're jumping ahead, but I'm looking for him to have another great performance on national TV and for him to add to his MVP resume. And I think that's the key.
Yeah,
but I think we'll be able, with our run defense, because our statistical situation with our defense, I think we'll be able to hold them and render Henry helpless pretty much. So.
I love it. Got another super chat from Omega TV. Just simply says, love you guys. Well, brother, we love you too.
Much love.
Yeah, he was the one that he said that we are all of his favorite content creators. So that's really super, super sweet.
You know what? You know what? You guys are all my favorite content creators too. So I share that sentiment.
This game for me, appreciate that, Nate. This game for me, I'm obviously watching a couple things. One of them is going to be Derrick Henry and what the Buffalo Bills do. It's if the Bills can get an early lead, they're going to have to get away from Derrick Henry, and then it's going to turn into what can Ryan Tannehill do, which is more or less what I'm really looking forward to. And it goes back to what Bruce was talking about in that word contain. The Bills lost contain, specifically Jerry Hughes, a lot last year in that football game, which allowed him to eat. If you guys remember, Jerry Hughes kept pushing his guy and then cutting in, and then Tannehill would just leak to the outside, and he would either take off or hit a receiver. It's going to be important. And they were asking Greg Rousseau, I was listening to his presser from this week about his ability to contain the edge and hold the edge. And he obviously gave all the props to coaching and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting to me to watch this football game and just see them hold Tannehill in the pocket. If they can hold him in the pocket, I think the game if they get a lead first, and then obviously, neutralize Derrick Henry, and then keep Tannehill in the pocket, that's what's going to be, for me, maybe a key to winning this football game. Real quick, the Buffalo Bills offense, it obviously for all of us, we've seen it, hasn't hit its stride yet this season. The defense has come to life. You could argue that it's better than it was in 2019. And even with the offense really not clicking in our opinions or what we would feel, they're still the number one scoring offense in the NFL. But when you look at that offense just not hitting its stride, the defense, as we've already talked about, being bad, what is it? I'm going to give this one to Newt first. What can this offense do early, in your opinion, to kind of put the Titans on their heels and almost, as I was just saying, neutralize Henry, kind of take him out of the game early, get up by maybe 2 possessions right out of the gate, start fast, right?
You're saying what can we do to get up early? Or
yes, offensively, yes.
Oh, well, we can run the football. I mean, one thing that I looked back last week against Kansas City, towards the end of the game, we have long drives that kind of keep Mahomes off the field and be able to have a good sustained long drive. Football is all about running the football when you want to run the football.
Right.
And versus this defense, this is a great opportunity to do it. So if we can run the football more, I mean, obviously our bread and butter is Josh Allen, but if we can run the football and have long sustained drives, that'd be wonderful too, to keep Tannehill off the field.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
This is a good opportunity because their defense is not that good.
And John Fina, another Buffalo Rumblings content creator, also agrees with you. Run that football. Bruce, what early for you? What does this offense got to do to kind of get up 2 possessions to neutralize Derrick Henry from that offense of the Titans?
I think you'd understand that them being in a situation where they have injuries on the back end, they know that the personnel is deficient. You're not going to come out and expect them to run a lot of man. So make sure you've got your best zone beaters. If you got flood concepts, if you got dagger concepts, now's the time, because you know full well that with Christian Fulton out, Christian Fulton was their best corner, and also found himself he plays more man coverage than anybody else on that team. So without Christian Fulton, you've got Jackrabbit Jenkins, you've got Chris Jackson, you got Elijah Molden, you got Breon Borders, you got Caleb Farley, and you're going to probably see a lot of zone coverage. So just come in and accept. I think part of the script should be zone beaters because they're probably not going to come out with man. They'll only go to man if they're forced to it. So for me, I would come in and make sure that your script contains built-in zone beaters. And that will allow us to be able to get some big pass plays right off the bat and be able to kind of force them out of something that they were hoping was going to be successful for them. I mean, there's a lot of, I've said this before a million times, there's an element of rock, paper, scissors to pass play and run play and pass coverage and run coverage. And like, there's an element of rock, paper, scissors to this. They throw rock, you throw paper, then because you threw paper, now they throw scissors, and so on and so forth. Right. So you got to fully understand that you're probably going to get zone heavy looks. So don't go in with the idea that you're going to help make sure you get, Stephon Diggs isolated on the backside. Like, that's just not something you're going to come as part of your, I'm not saying you don't have the option, but it's something where you go to it when you need it, but you got to assume they're going to lead with zone. So for me, that's what I want to see. I want to see if they're actually going to come out, because I don't think they're arrogant enough to assume that their defenders, who I already mentioned, can go toe to toe with the Buffalo Bills wide receivers. I don't think they're going to. I think, Vrabel's smart enough to know that, and their tendencies have leaned zone this year because I think that they know. So for me, expect that they're going to lead with zone and have the zone beaters in there.
Gotcha. So Nate, for you, what I would like to know, so Big Newt saying run the ball, right? And obviously, Bruce is talking about zone beaters and being prepared. What do you envision? Do you think the Buffalo Bills come out and they're a measure of who they are? So they're just going to put the gas to the floor, the pedal to the metal, and they're going to throw the ball over the yard? Or might we see more run, more of a balanced attack? What do you think?
Well, first off, I don't know what a flood concept is, or a dagger route, or a dagger beater, or whatever Bruce said. So I defer to his intelligence on that one. And then secondly, real quick, John Fina. I mean, what does John Fina know about running the ball? I mean, what is he? He acts like he's been in the NFL or something. It's like no. All jokes aside,
Fantastic.
basically what I said earlier about getting the passing game going against this really poor Titan secondary, and honestly, it's a lot. This sounds dumb, or maybe too simple because it's coming from me, but it's if you can just not turn the ball over.
Mm.
You are the superior team. And I know it's
Good.
super simplified saying that. Be the superior team. Don't muff any punts. Don't turn the ball over on kickoff returns. Don't turn the ball over in general. And be the one that takes the ball away. That's actually like a John Madden simplified response. But if you score more points than the other team, at the end of the day, you'll always win, usually.
Yeah, they talk about turnovers coming in bunches, and we've seen them in bunches for this defense. I thought the number was plus 11. I saw a graphic where it said plus 15, so I've been saying plus 15, and one of the three of you can correct me on which one it is or isn't. Regardless, they're leading the league at plus 11 or plus 15. Nate, I'm going to stay with you. What do you think it's a bunches thing? Is it something that this defense is doing? Because we've seen a lot of tip balls for interceptions. Obviously, we've seen some punches of footballs. Is it just something they're focused on? We've also seen them tackle better this year, this defense. They're just playing better. But specifically the turnovers, because you brought it up. Is there something you've been noticing, seeing, anything like that?
Well, first off, I'm a big fan of the peanut punch, not only because of the name of it, but because it actually works. It appears it was like before Sean McDermott took over. It's like the team didn't even know that you could try to rip the ball out of a ball carrier's hands while you're tackling them. It's like, well, I just got to tackle them, and that's the end of it. And like, no, this is an opportunistic defense, and I think a lot of it does have to do with, there will be some sort of regression to the mean, I'm sure. But at the same time, there were a lot of fumbles, if you recall from last season, that just didn't go the Bills' way. I mean, there'd be lots of forced fumbles and then just not a Bill anywhere to be found. Like that's just what it felt like. And same thing with tip balls. Tip balls would be, someone would tip it at the line of scrimmage and it'd go 20 feet into the air. And you're like, somebody's going to come down with it.
Right.
And nobody would be it. I think this is just finally things are starting to go the defense's way in terms of the takeaway game. And does that continue tonight? I don't see why not, given the game script and the fact that I think the Titans are going to have to be passing a lot. I think the Bills are going to get into those passing lanes. I think Greg Rousseau, those tall guys, they're going to be, batting balls down at the line of scrimmage, hopefully creating some turnovers and hopefully tipping some balls up for the secondary. So, we can get another Micah Hyde interception because I believe he's had one in each of the last 3 games. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
And his very first pick 6 the other night in his career. So I'm going to throw this one out to whoever wants to jump on it can go first. And then if anybody wants to follow up, you can do that as well. Shane Glover says they said on One Bills Live today that supposedly the attendance for the game is going to be 58% Bills fans. I don't even know where, like, that is this isn't the Chargers, right? This isn't the Rams. This isn't the Dolphins. This is the Tennessee Titans. You're talking about a fan base in Bills Mafia that travels better or at least as good as anybody else. Anybody have a thought on that? 58%, if it comes true, more than half the stadium, Buffalo Bills fans. Anybody?
If you're a Titans fan, how embarrassed are you?
Right.
Seriously. So funny story. So little funny Bruce story. My wife and I got engaged at a Bills Titans game.
Oh, wow.
So we were having a chat right around the Bills Titans game. And I said, hey, we should get married. And she said, sure. And that was it. That was what we did.
That was the whole thing.
That was it. That was the whole thing. I am nothing if not a romantic, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God, they got to make a movie about that, Bruce.
They absolutely. I mean, it's a good story. And so now when I think of Bills Titans games, then that's what I think of, obviously. But if you're a Titans fan, there are 2 ways you can approach this. You can say, number one, this is embarrassing, right? This is embarrassing. Why are there so many tickets available, right, for them to scoop up? Or you can say, you can go on the offensive. So get ready to hear this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason you traveled for this game is because it sucks being Buffalo so much. You got to come down here. Like, just get ready to hear that, because of all the fan bases in all of the NFL that the Bills have really no reason to have a rivalry with, the Titans are it. The Music City Miracle, buying votes on the Fox Sports poll. There is this low-key rivalry between the Bills and the Titans that we really don't talk about, but we probably should.
Yeah.
There's a kind of simmering right beneath the surface of a rivalry, is a rivalry that really doesn't pop up very often, once a year, once every 2 years, things like that, but it's real. This is a point in Bills' favor. This is a point in the Bills' favor that your team doesn't even generate enough interest on a Monday night nationally televised primetime game to fill your stadium without 58% of it being Bills Mafia. Like, that is a point in the favor of this. Now, we understand that part of it's because Nashville's a destination. Like, I get that. If it was Bills Cincinnati, 58% of it wouldn't be Bills fans because not as many people want to go to Cincinnati. I don't know why. Cincinnati is a delightful town. I spent a lot of time there. But we all know that it's partially because Nashville's a good place to go visit. We get that. But even so, man, that's got to burn.
I agree. Anybody else?
And the kicker with that is, if we jump on them, like Nate said, we jump on them early, people start leaving, they're going to be like, I'm going to get ready to go to work in the morning. And then everybody start coming down, coming down to the boat. You can really see it. And you saw it last week in the Kansas City game. I mean, once it rained delayed, and they started leaving, they knew they was going to lose. And all Bills Mafia come down, and you can hear the chant. You can hear the song. Right. You can hear the chant, with 2-3 minutes left in the game, man. It's wonderful. And I think that's going to happen tonight. And Bruce is right. He hit the nail on the head when he said everybody wants, when the schedule comes out, everyone looked at it like, oh, we want to go to the Nashville game. See, I'm like you. I want to go to the Tampa. I want to go to the Tampa Bay game. I want to be in Florida in December. So that's where I'm looking at. Perhaps even the Jacksonville game. But, I mean, a lot of the backers, man, it was like that's going to be the game they want to go to. So I think, like Bruce said again, it's one of those situations where everybody wants to go party in Nashville. And we take over the town when we do it. You look at social media, that's all you see, man. It's us taking over places, man. And that's just a testament to our fan base.
Yeah, Nate, were you to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, first of all, it definitely is embarrassing, like Bruce said, that 58%. Could you imagine if that happened in Orchard Park where 58%, unless it was the drought, if only in maybe the drought era where the last couple of games where the Bills were definitely out. It's the only time I could ever see anything. But even then, I don't remember that ever happening. Mm-hmm. And look, this is, I kind of liken it to like a volcano. My daughter's really into volcanoes right now. And it's like, it makes me think of the fan base, and the fan base was just dormant for so long through the drought. And this whole time, you have the magma sitting underneath it's like Mount St. Helens, right? It's just under there, it's under there, but it's not active. And then, the drought ends, and all of a sudden it's just starting to pour over the edges, right? The lava's coming down the side. It's burning everything in its path. And Bills Mafia has just been, it never went away. It was always there, and now it's as active as ever. Mm. And it's just, now you're seeing the result of it. You're seeing them in Kansas City. You remember the Bills Jacksonville Jaguars game. I mean, I think at least 20% of that stadium was there for a playoff game in Jacksonville. Bills Mafia travels. There's a lot of Bills Mafia all over the country. That's why there's so many Bills backers bars. I think we're now just finally seeing the effects of it on a large scale, and I don't think it's going away, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me in this whole fear of missing out, this FOMO experience, is just having. So I know that Bruce has been doing this a couple of years. Big Newt, I don't know how long you've been doing it, and Nate either. So for me, I started in 2019. When did everybody start their podcast? When did you start, Nate?
When was the internet invented? I can't remember. No. It was Sean McDermott's first year.
So 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Right around the time the Rock Power Report started. Then, basically, Big Newt. When did you start?
Last year.
And Bruce, when did you? Yeah. Was it 18 for you, Bruce?
18 for me. Yeah.
So I started in 19, season ticket holder since 97. And what's and then and then you get connected to the fan base, and all of you guys get it, right? Because, people tweet at you, there's interaction, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. people connect with you, they email you, like, Bruce, you've got an email bag, and we all have our ways of connecting. And then 2020 happens and COVID happens, and like the whole entire experience of like meeting people is wiped out. And I know for some of us in the panel, specifically one of us,
perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Big Newt.
like literally it's not the greatest idea or fun thing to like be meeting with everybody, but for me, I felt like that experience was robbed. So all that to say this, when the Bills Mafia homecoming happened for opening week, that opening week was just a riot. The amount of people that I got to meet and connect with, and people that I only knew on Twitter came to life as far as people that have interacted for a long time. So I think that's what it is for me. Just that experience that I had at the Buffalo Bills, the Bills Mafia homecoming week, that party and the home opener and all that stuff, and just seeing it all taking place again in Nashville. Only it's like times 10, because now Andre Reed is there, Eric Wood is there, all the beat reporters are there, like everybody's there together, and they're doing the chant in bars, and the bands are playing the shout song. Like the bands in the bars like came prepared. Like this week, the Bills Mafia is going to be here. We better learn the shout song. Did anybody pick up on that? Anybody? Like it's totally crazy. So for me, just to see what's going on, it's electric, and it's a little bit insane. And I'm interested in seeing Tampa as far as what that crowd's like. New Orleans, I know the amount of people that I know that are going to New Orleans for the Thanksgiving Day game, which my wife would never let me do. It's just going to be amazing. Bruce,
She's a smart woman.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question, Bruce, and I think you're probably the best equipped to handle it. And it's simple. What is going on with this Titans offense? Because I was floored this week when I was doing my prep work for the Hump Day Hotline, getting into this week's matchup. And I discovered that all of last year, Tannehill was sacked 24 times. He's been sacked 20 times this year. It can't be the loss of Jonnu Smith. It can't be the loss of, was it Chris Carter? Who's the wide receiver that they lost?
Corey Davis,
yes. It can't be because those two are gone. What is going on? Like, what is going on with this offensive line? What is going on? What is going on?
Well, I think the transition from Arthur Smith to Todd Downing has been a little bit more significant than they thought. I think everyone just kind of assumed that Todd Downing would take the Arthur Smith offense and just keep going. A lot of people do that. When you lose offensive coordinators and you promote from within, a lot of people just go, well, it's going to be the same. As if somehow there's really nothing to that offensive coordinator aside from his playbook. Like that's it. The only thing that an offensive coordinator has to offer a team is a stack of papers with scribbled notes on them, because I'm old, and that's the way we used to have playbooks. We didn't have tablets when I had playbooks. We had an actual book with plays in it. That's why they call it a playbook, people, not a play pad or a play tablet. It's called a playbook for a reason. Get off my lawn. But the play action percentage isn't the same. The screen percentage isn't the same, right? All these things that you took for granted, because think about what resuscitated Ryan Tannehill's career was that Arthur Smith, Sean McVay style offense that was heavily based on running the ball out of wide zones and making sure that you had intermediate passing concepts that were powerful out of play action. And Marcus Mariota wasn't as good running those concepts as Ryan Tannehill was. And so they went to Ryan Tannehill and they never looked back. But that's what resuscitated Ryan Tannehill. That's what made him a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Don't think that's crazy. It's not. Ryan Tannehill, the last 2 years, has been a top 10 quarterback in the NFL by almost any measure that you'd like. I happen to be using Stu for that measure. But this year it's not the same. And he's still been really good off of play action. But the play action percentage wasn't the same. This year, 26.2% of his dropbacks have been off play action. And he's had 10 yards an attempt. Last year, 36.2 percentage of his dropbacks were play action. That's massive. That is a huge, there's a 33% drop roughly in play action usage this year versus last year. Last year, screen percentage 6.3. This year, screen percentage 8.4. So they're trying to kind of supplement what's going on in the screen game for what's going on in the play action game. And it's not the same. You can't replicate those same explosive passing plays in the screen game as you can in the play action game.
Right.
You just can't. And when you add to that the fact that the receivers have been banged up, and those receivers are best utilized in that game. I mean, Julio Jones and A.J. Brown were almost tailor-made for this system, and now they're banged up. So you're not doing the things that you're good at as often as you used to be. And the guys you handpicked to be good at that thing aren't available. So you're doing the thing less without the people. It just snowballs from there.
Yeah.
And that's why the Titans passing offense has been less than stellar relative to last year.
We're going to welcome Jay Spencer King to the show here in a second. There's another loaded topic in there that obviously I'm sure you have already planned for a discussion, which is that the Bills are about to do the very same thing potentially when Brian Daboll moves on, just basically promote the guy behind him. But we're not gonna dive down that rabbit trail. But now that Jay Spence is with us, Aaron Wilson, beat reporter for the Texans, has just reported 34 minutes ago that the Texans are cutting Andre Roberts. And I don't know if that's why you jumped in, Jay Spence, but you jumped in right as I was going to segue to this. So welcome to the show.
Well, for starters, hi everybody. I didn't mean to just jump in the room. Every time I do it from my phone, I can't just be in the back. I don't know why it brings me directly into the room. So I apologize for crashing the party the wrong way. But bring my guy home. Bring my guy home. Come home, Andre. Come home. I already tagged him and told him to make the announcement on the code of conduct. He needs to come home.
I saw it. I saw it on Twitter when I was doing the research. Anybody else got a thought about Andre Roberts?
Yeah, after the Titans game, he's welcome to come back, just not now or before that. And I only say that only because I love Andre Roberts just as much as Jay Spence does. The only reason I remember that is because everyone hated Andre Roberts after the Titans game, even though absolutely maybe a little of it was his fault. But yeah, absolutely. I would bring him home in a second. I love Andre Roberts.
Big Newt.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Even though our special teams right now, we're number one in kickoff returns, I think. I mean, I know it's a low sample size, but he was as sure-handed as it gets when he was in Buffalo. So I would definitely welcome him back as long as it's on a team-friendly deal.
So the question, go ahead, Bruce, to say unmute.
So after 1 week, Isaiah McKenzie was performing really well in the kickoff return game. And then we had 2 weeks where we didn't get any kickoff returns really because we shut them out and they got touchbacks when they did kick it. But right now, Isaiah McKenzie is averaging 27.8 yards per attempt in kickoff returns. He's averaging 8.3 yards per attempt on punt returns. And we all know that those two things by themselves do not sum up how a returner has performed. We all know that because returning is about decision-making. It's about hidden yardage. Every single one of the kickoff returns and punt returns revolves around a risk management decision that has to be made. And that's really what it is. You're making a risk management decision with your head in the air, trying to track a ball and not get hit by 250-pound men running full speed at you. That's what being a kick and punt returner is in this NFL game right now. It's risk management on the fly in a violent arena. That's what returning is. Yeah. And when Isaiah McKenzie gets the ball in his hands, I think we can agree he's a dynamic athlete, and we can agree probably he's a more dynamic athlete at this stage in his career than Andre Roberts is. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
However, Andre Roberts makes good decisions. He's always made good decisions. He's made good decisions his entire career. Now he has moments. Everyone has moments. Andre Roberts has returned a bajillion kicks in his career. And that's exactly why I want him back there. Andre Roberts is one of the best kick returners of this particular era. He's not Cordero Patterson, but Cordero Patterson will go down as maybe the greatest kick return in the history of the NFL. And that's not hyperbole. Go look up Cordero Patterson's stats.
Yeah.
But Andre Roberts is someone who I trust to be back there. Now, I'm not saying let's go out and get him. What I'm saying is, hey, I would look at it. Because if it depends on the reason why you didn't re-sign him this offseason. If you didn't re-sign him this offseason because the money was too rich, then go talk to him now. If you didn't re-sign him this offseason because you thought that McKenzie was an upgrade, well, then evaluate McKenzie. But I think it's worth a discussion.
Yeah. I think for me, and we can jump off this topic here in a second, just because we've only got about 10 minutes left, and I want to get everybody to the point where they can get on their couch with a beer before the football game comes on. It's about the instinct. The instinct for me is the big difference between at least what I've seen. I'm not saying Isaiah McKenzie won't get there. But when you talk about Andre Roberts having done this 10 bazillion times, there's something about the way he sees. So he spots the ball. For those of us that played baseball or whatever, like the ability to see the ball go up, right? Your body knows where it's at. Look down, look up again. Andre Roberts, that first step is always the right step. There's something instinctually about Andre Roberts that he just knows, whether it's he's watching the defense, sees the kick, watch the defense, sees the kick, watch the defense, and then looks up and catches it and then knows where to go. It's just different. And Isaiah hasn't developed that first step yet. I'm not saying that he can't, that he won't. He's clearly, as you said, more athletic at this point in his age because he's younger. But at the end of the day, it'd be worth a conversation. But the question is exactly this: who gets cut or who goes to the practice squad if Andre Roberts is signed, right? So at that point, is it Jake Kumaro? Is he the last guy?
It's Kumaro, yeah.
Yeah, it's Kumaro. Let's do this. So for the last thing before we get into predictions, I think it's funny, and Jay Spence will probably remember this because it was coming up on the Humpty Hotline last year, where we were doing our shows and we were talking about the next game, just like we're doing right now, and who we're going to face. And we're facing the Dolphins this week. We're facing whoever this week, and we would talk about what the Bills had to do to beat X team. And people in the comment section started to get angry about halfway through the season, and they were like, why don't we talk about what they have to do to beat us? And it was a foreign concept because we had never lived in that space before. But on all of our shows, when we talk about these games, have you guys noticed that it's changed, that our rhetoric and our conversation has changed from what we have to do to beat them, and it's now turned into what they have to do to beat us? Somebody jump on that, because to me, that's fascinating.
Well, if I can jump in real quick, because I'm going to leave as well. I'm headed home so I can catch the game. So I just wanted to jump in real quick and say hi to everybody. Go Bills. Let's get this W. What I think they have to do to beat us, to be honest, they have to do what they haven't been able to do the last 3 times they played us. Even though they beat us the last time, Derrick Henry really didn't get off. He had 2 touchdowns, so I'm not saying it like he wasn't effective in that way. But his rushing totals, they didn't control the clock. It's a different team than that went down there last year. So when you're looking at the Bills going there again, it's not going to be a 40+ to 18 or 16 win for them. It's not going to be that. So they're going to have to do basically what happened to us in that first Super Bowl. They're going to have to try to keep our offense off the field. They're going to have to control that clock. And if they can't do that, it's going to be a long night for them down there in Nashville. Hey, I love all y'all. Go Bills. I'll see y'all during the game on Twitter.
Very good. Love you, dude.
Love y'all.
Go Bills. So
when you talk about what they got to do, and it's funny because you interact with the fans talking about that. It's kind of like we're bougie now, man. We're up it. We're new money now, dude. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
The game is different. How the fans look at it now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's more or less the whole situation. We haven't been in this space in a long time.
Right.
I know, some of us are older and we remember the old days. We remember the drought. But thank God my son ain't gonna remember too much of that. He's gonna remember the good stuff, and it'll make it worth it. He's 11 years old now, so he's gonna remember the good times going forward. Yeah. So I think that's more or less it in the nutshell. That hey, we've been winning. We're one of the hot teams, like we said earlier in the show. We're the number 1 in power rankings, so we act like that. We can stick our chest out. We can pull out the old gear that we've been hiding and wear it proudly and not get laughed at anymore.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Nate, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I love that Big Newt just said bougie, and the fact that it's like such a weird, like we're new money. I love that you said that, because I always joke around in the podcast like that. When I grew up, when I was a young kid in the early 90s, like you thought it was your birthright to go to the playoffs and Super Bowls every season. Like we were like trust fund kids back then, like there was no way. And then all of a sudden, we got the inheritance yanked out from underneath us for 17 years. So it absolutely feels weird. It feels good, but it feels weird and awkward at the same time. But I'm loving every second of it because you stuck with a team. You hoped that at some point it would pay off, like an investment that never seemed to pay off for a long time. You're like, how long am I going to hold on to this Bitcoin before it actually starts paying off?
I was going to say Dogecoin.
Dogecoin. Yeah. Like, when is Apple going to start making these iPods so the stock actually goes up?
It's funny.
No, this is such a good time. Like you said, Joe, it is absolutely the other way around, particularly with the Titans. And I think that the only way that the Bills don't win this one is, like I said, like what happened last year. You pretty much have to, turn the ball over at inopportune times, a special teams turnover, a pick six going the other way, like in week 1 versus the Steelers, when I still think they should have won that game. More poor officiating, like we've seen a lot through this season. And I think if all those things don't go against us, and a lot of those things the Bills have been able to overcome anyway, I think the Bills are absolutely the team to beat. I think the 6.5-point spread is a joke. I think that the Bills, unless everything goes wrong, I think the Bills are up by more than 6.5 by halftime.
That's good. I agree. Bruce, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm just going to twist it just a little. Watching football yesterday, and it was on Twitter today a little bit, and I think I even said something too, that just looked like a lot of bad football. And the question is, are the Bills that good, or is everybody else that bad?
Well, I don't think that the Bills have had an overly challenging schedule thus far this year, but to be fair, they don't have an overly challenging remainder of the schedule either.
Agreed.
So I think that there's a very reasonable chance that you're going to get into the playoffs with the Buffalo Bills having the most significant game that they played be against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I believe in measuring stick games, and I understand that every playoff game is a measuring stick game, but during the year, there are really 2 of them. And it was Kansas City and Tampa Bay. And so I think that when you have measuring stick games, I think they matter, because even though it isn't any given Sunday NFL, we understand this. We understand that crazy things happen. Are you trying to tell me that the general narrative on the Los Angeles Chargers is not different now than it was before they got their rear ends completely handed to them by the Baltimore Ravens? So the Ravens and the Chargers both went in that game 4-1. And there was a conversation about, okay, it's Bills, and it's, we all assume the Chiefs are going to bounce back against the Washington football team, which they did. And it's the Chargers and it's the Ravens at the top of the AFC. And now all of a sudden it's, okay, are the Chargers really against the Ravens? Is that even like a fair matchup, or what's going on? Is it the Ravens and the Bills now instead of the Chiefs and the Bills? And so I believe in these measuring stick games. And it's a little bit like, this is going to sound awful when I say it, but it's a little bit like college football in the sense that certain games you go in going, okay, we're the better team, we should win. It's Ohio State versus Akron. Yeah. Right. It should absolutely, they should win. But then you have a couple games every year where it's Ohio State, Penn State. It's Ohio State, Michigan State. And you Ohio State, Iowa, and you go, okay, like this is the measuring stick game. Now the NFL is not like that exactly, because any given Sunday happens a lot more often in the NFL. But when it comes to the Bills' schedule, and you say, okay, are the Bills that good or the rest of the teams that bad? The answer is, I don't really know yet. I don't know yet. I know the Bills are a good football team, but the Chiefs game is different now that it's over. It feels different because the Chiefs defense is really, really, really bad. And you go, okay, the Bills are a better team than the Chiefs, I think. Okay. I mentioned on my podcast, that was an any Sunday win, not an any given Sunday win. This was a, we'll beat you anytime we play you kind of game. This was you got lucky. We got the ball bounce a couple times in the right way. And we stole a victory from the Chiefs. We didn't steal a victory from the Chiefs. We forcibly removed it from them. We turned them upside down, hung them by their ankles, and stole their lunch money. That's what happened in the Bills-Chiefs game. It wasn't we're going to sneak in the middle of the night while you're not paying attention, hope your dog doesn't bark at me, and take something off your nightstand. No. We stole it from off of your person. It wasn't a theft. It was a robbery. There's a difference.
It's good.
And so this kind of game, I think, matters a lot more in retrospect. But then you look at how the Chiefs have played over the last couple of games and you go, okay, did it really matter? Now is the next measuring stick game Tampa Bay, right? Is that the next measuring stick game?
It is.
That really kind of, okay, how good is this team? It's going to be tricky. I kind of wish the Bills played the Arizona Cardinals. And that could be a measuring stick game for the Buffalo Bills because the Cardinals are a lot better this year than they were last year. So I think that the answer is I don't know yet. I know the Bills are a good team. I don't know how good, because I don't think there's going to be enough measuring stick games to determine that before the playoffs come.
We're going to say Big Newt.
I would add New Orleans Saints game. Thanksgiving. Yeah, I would put them in the group. After, I talked about this on our pod. After tonight, I'm worried about Tampa Bay and I'm worried about New Orleans because New Orleans isn't healthy right now. By the time we play them, they're going to get guys back, so they're going to be a different team. And it's going to be in New Orleans on Thanksgiving. That's going to be wild. It's going to remind you of the Dallas game when we played them on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So I will add them to that bunch. And the thing about it is, like you said, it's any given Sunday, but we see every Sunday where scrubs beat good teams.
Oh, yeah.
So now is one of those things where are we so good that we're not going to let somebody come beat us that they should beat us? And I wouldn't put Tennessee in that situation. I'm talking about like Miami or the Jets, just like the Jets beat Tennessee.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Are we going to let Jacksonville get their second or third win against us? So I think that's more or less, and once again, being new money, we ain't been in this space in a long time. We're playing against ourselves. Yeah. We got to make sure Sean McDermott get these guys ready to go week in, week out. And if you look at his track record, he's pretty much done that. Especially the last year and this year. We don't really lose the people we don't supposed to lose to. And that's a testament to his preparation. But scrubs beat good teams every week. So I don't look at it quite like that and that confident. I just look at it like we got to be prepared every week. And then today is one of those days. And I think we will.
Super good. So with that, we're going to wrap this thing up. Everybody's been tuned into the countdown to kickoff on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. Before we go, we're going to do just a quick score prediction, and then we'll get out of here. So, Bruce, game prediction for this game? Score prediction?
I'm going to go 31-17 Buffalo.
31-17 Buffalo. Nate?
I'm going to go 42-16. The same score happened against the Bills last year where the Titans won, except this time the Bills come out on top.
Flip it. Big Newt.
34-14, and I hope Trubisky gets in. That's what I love. I love when the backup guys get in.
That's awesome.
We're not used to that.
I'm going big. I think I've got 48, like 48-17. The Buffalo Bills are going to win this football game. I think they'd step on their necks to keep the pedal to the ground, and they just keep going. And the same thing, I think Trubisky goes in somewhere potentially end of the third, early fourth, and he might have a touchdown or two. So I just don't think the Titans have what it takes to stop this football game or this football team. So we're over time, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Miller for Bruce Exclusive, for Big Newt, for Nate. We thank you guys for joining us here on the Countdown to Kickoff Monday Night Football edition on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. Can I get a go Bills from everybody? Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Hey.
Hey.
Let's go Buffalo.
Let's go Buffalo.
Go Bills.